Hi guys, Sam from Walkgate Studios here, back again doing a little demo of what I think is probably the best Martian bases and recipe for Martian bases out there at the moment, and also some really good sand textured bases to have a mess around with as well. So to give you an overview of the products that I'm using today, I was given these by Huge Miniatures down at Adepticon to have a test out and see how these go along. They kind of go in pairs really. There is a textured paint and it kind of pairs nicely with the weathering powder that they have, and it's exactly the same thing with the Martian side of things, that they have a textured paste and then a weathering powder. The thing that I actually like a little bit more on the weathering powders and the texture on this one is there is a little bit of a difference. So the actual Martian base color is quite a little bit different than the Mars dust. There's a little bit of a difference in color, as you can see, between the desert and the sand weathering powder, but yeah, we'll get to it, and I'll kind of show you how I went through the process of building these bases for these two, and yeah, we'll get to it. So first things first, I'm going to pick out some bases that I'm going to use. So the bases that I'm going to use today, I'm just going to grab a couple out of my collection, and we are going to go with probably some 32mm bases. I'm going to just grab a couple of 32mm bases. So we've got these two here. No real major issue with them. Good thing about this texture is you don't really need to prime anything, so you can just work on these bases, get these bases done without having to really worry about priming them or getting anything down. So the tool to use, I've got kind of an old dental tool, but you can grab a spatula. I wouldn't use a brush with these because the texture in the paints will destroy your brush. So I'm gonna kind of quickly chuck some of this texture on. Both of these say that it dries to the touch in less than 30 minutes. The depth that I'm going to be doing these for this demo, I'm going to probably leave them for a little bit longer than that, because there's going to be some stuff that I'm going to be doing halfway through, but I kind of want to explain it as I'm going through. So I'm just going to grab some of this texture. It's very thin, which is what I like, and I'm just getting this onto the base. One of the things that I've noticed working with this on the demo bases that I did is that this is kind of like a little bit like self-leveling, which is great for like sand duney effects. So this kind of smushes down quite a bit. It doesn't, you can kind of do stuff like that and then it'll actually start settling down and smush down a little bit, so it just becomes more natural, like a windswept look, and I love it. I think it's really good, and the effects that you can do with this, I'm literally just trying to cover every single little bit of this base so that we can get the best effect on it possible, and as you can see, it starts to smush down as much as possible. Okay, so there we go. That's the base done. I'm going to leave this to dry maybe for about half an hour, just to start hardening up a little bit. Then I'm going to come back, because after talking to the guys at Huge Miniatures, they actually recommended putting their tufts into this when it was semi-dry. So I'm going to kind of do that, and I did that beforehand, and it came out fantastically well. So yeah, I'm going to kind of get to that after about 30 minutes. So that's the first one. I'm going to put this back on. I'm just going to leave that up there so you can kind of see that drying, and that is the first one, the Martian. And I'm going to just give my spatula a quick clean off so there's no red in my desert, and then I'm going to grab the desert texture, which is exactly the same, just a different color. And I'm going to grab my 32mm base, and I am going to stick a load of this on the top. I'm going to do exactly the same with this as we did with the other one. I'm just going to move this around, make sure I cover the whole of the base with the texture. The thicker that you put this on, you're going to need a few hours to get this to dry. Just the thicker it is. If you put it on a nice thin coat, yeah, I definitely would say the 30 minutes or less is doable. But the thickness that I like these bases to go on is more than 30 minutes. So there's my desert base. I'm just going to kind of get all of the texture off. If you do go over the edges on the rim, on the bevel, you can clean this up. It's quite easy to clean up, but I'm just going to leave that there to start drying. And then, yeah, we're going to come back maybe in about half an hour's time and start putting some tufts in on these, which is kind of weird for me to be putting them in on wet stuff, but it works really, really well with this product. So yeah, we'll be back in about 30 minutes and then we can start working on some tufts. Okay, so we've given these about 45 minutes to dry, and as you can kind of see, they've become a little bit tacky, a little bit like balloony, because you can still feel the texture's a little bit soft underneath. But this is the prime moment to actually start messing around with our tufts. So the tufts that I'm going to be using on the Martian base, believe it or not, is going to be some green ones. These are some of the tufts that they do from Huge Miniatures, and I'm gonna just grab a couple of them and kind of show you sort of what this kind of does. Let's do 3. Let's go crazy. And I am going to grab a pair of tweezers, and I am literally just going to grab some of these tufts. I'm going to work out where I want them, and I'm going to push them into the kind of semi-soft sort of Martian base, and then I'm going to grab this and kind of just smush this around and give this a little bit of movement away. And as I said, because it's kind of not wet but just more manageable and more malleable, it's you can kind of start making some shapes and just some natural little curves and stuff like that with it, which is what I like doing, because this is what makes this product nice for me. You can start making, as you can kind of see, it's just a little some grooves and those sorts of things in it. I'm going to grab one more of the tufts, the green ones, and just stick it on the lower level here, and we will call this good. So you can kind of see all I'm doing is just grabbing it, sinking it in to the product, and then I'm going to work the product around it. And I like the fact that this can be maneuvered and moved around after the product has been put down, and you can kind of just burst it open and kind of just smush it around and really kind of have some fun with it with the tufts. These tufts are remarkably bright, so really what I want to do is kind of just I'm not going to dull them down. They're going to be dulled down anyway with the weathering powder, but I'm just going to literally grab some of the textures, move it around a little bit, and then I'm going to call that good. And then we're going to do exactly the same with the sand bases as well. So I've got some tufts that I purchased quite a while back from Huge Miniatures as well, and I'm going to use some of theirs. And again, I'm going to grab 2 tufts. One of their tufts is that they've got some tufts with like little bits of wood in them, which I think looks really, really good. So I'm going to grab one of those, and then there's just a random other tuft, and see how that goes. All of these products are from Huge Miniatures, so everything goes quite nicely together. I'm going to get the tuft, sink it into the product, and then just maneuver it around a little bit just to make it look a little bit more natural. And as I said earlier, while this is drying, it's very, very easy to clean up if anything gets over the lip of the bevel that you're wanting, just to trim it up and get it looking nicer. And then I'm going to sink another one in here into the kind of drying product. Make sure you kind of break that skin on the top of the surface and sink it in. And then you can use your finger or a tool and just kind of smush all this around, making it, this would be a good prime time to put in feet and get some feet for the model that you're going to be sinking into these bases, or it would be a good time to mess around with any other sort of bits. I was thinking of actually doing this demo with some wood pieces. I've got some 3D printed wood like product as well. This would be where I would sink the wood piece into here, and you know, would it being pretty much fully painted, and then it'd be good to go when I come around to finishing everything off. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of smush this now a little bit to the side. There's some natural kind of changes in the base, a little bit more texture on there, and then we're going to call that good. And I'm going to let this set now fully. So because of the thickness that I've got on these, I'm going to leave these to set for probably about 2 to 3 hours, and it may well be, because of the thickness of them, that I actually come back tomorrow and do these. So yeah, that's that. And then tomorrow or later on today, I'm going to come back in the next part of the video and finish off with these weathering powders. Sorry, they should go like that with those bases, so you can kind of see that you've got the weathering powder for the sand that's going to go with the sand base, and then the weathering powder for the Mars dust. I'll also kind of do some little stuff with some washes and stuff on these as well, and kind of show you how I finish them off. I'll be back in a bit with the next part of the video. Okay, so the bases are dry. This is what we're left with here. It's a super nice hard texture. It's a little bit like pumice, I guess, but it's a lot finer. And as I said, it's kind of set nicely with the tufts in the actually embedded into it. So now what I'm actually going to do is, there's two methods that I've found that work really nicely with this. First one is on the Mars base. I actually like to give it a little bit more depth by putting a wash over it. So I'm just going to grab some of the Monument Hobbies brown wash. I'm just going to put a little bit of that onto my palette, and then I'm just going to water it down a little bit, because I want to still get as much of the orangey kind of glow on this, but I'm literally just going to give a little coat of brown wash just to get into all the crevices there, and just kind of give me a little bit more depth, because it's a little bit monotone without the wash on. So I'm kind of going to do that, and I'm also going to do it on the sand base as well, again just to create a little bit of depth and just to draw that color back a little bit. So that's wet. This material, this texture base, it actually says it's an effects gel. I actually think there's something quite porous about it, so it's kind of nice that you can work with it. Kind of soaks that color into it, and then gives you that kind of depth. So that's the Martian one. That will actually dry out nicely and come back, as will this color as well. But I'm just gonna give this a even lighter coat of brown, because this, I don't really want to tone this down too much. I'm just literally going to take it down. I just want a gentle kind of darkness in some of the areas, just to kind of give it a little bit of depth, as I said. And but I don't really want to take away too much of the sandy color and make it look like wet sand. So there we go. So it's just a little bit of depth, just changes that color just a little bit. And leave some of that colour in to some of the other areas, just to give it a little bit more attraction on the eye. So I'm going to leave these to dry. This one's already drying pretty quick, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to do a little bit of work with the pigments and an airbrush. The airbrush is going to be, I'll go kind of through it with all of the differences and alternative methods of using it. Airbrush is going to be the quickest way for me to explain what we're going to do with these, but we're mostly going to be adding the powders. And if you've not worked with pigments or powders beforehand, it'll kind of give you a little introduction to it. So yeah, I'm going to come back, work with these and a little bit on the airbrush, and we'll get going. So I'm just going to wait for these to dry and then we'll be back. Okay, so we're all pretty much dry to the touch on these bases after the wash. You can kind of see the areas. I've got my airbrush with me, but you can kind of see the areas that wash has just settled in, just to give it a bit more depth. Looks awesome, really like it. And it's the same on here. You can kind of see the variations in the dark little parts on the Mars base. Just that wash over the top, I think, really does it a nice little bit. So now I'm going to quickly I'm just going to do one base by one base with these texture powders. We're going to do the Mars base first. What you want is either, and I've tried this out with two different mediums. I've tried it out with the Lamium medium as just some sort of medium for the pigment to adhere to, and I've also tried it out with the anti-shine matte varnish from Army Painter. That's cheap, and I'm just going to load some into my my airbrush, just like 2 or 3 drops. You don't need much, and then what we're actually going to do, we're going to spray a tiny little bit onto areas on here, and just give it a little bit, and on the tufts as well, because what we're going to do, I'm just going to put my brush to the side. What we're going to do now is we're going to grab some of the pigment from the pot. Just grab an old big dry brush, which is what I kind of like, just an old crappy brush, and then we're going to like start dabbing a lot of this on here. And again, it'll look, you'll be like, what the hell are you doing? And it looks way too crazy at the moment. And you're just going to start shaking off some of it and really kind of start working it off. What will happen is the pigment will stick to some of the I'm just going to give this a quick blow, and then you'll start to see that you can work some of the pigment off of it. So it looks crazy at the moment, but you can actually start brushing off some of the pigment, and it's got that dusty effect now, and you can work back to wherever you want it to be with this. And you can also, if you really want to, add some water just to sort of brush some of it off and start moving it around. I just like dusting it off, and you can kind of get back to that dark red underneath quite nicely. It coats, the pigment coats the green, tones that down dramatically, which is what I kind of like. It really does tone that green grass down and gives the green grass a little bit more of a kind of a more Marsy feel to it. And then what I'm actually going to do is grab another clean brush and then start, it's a little bit harder, and start working this and trying to get some of that pigment off of here. And then you don't be afraid to give it a blow now and then to get some of that pigment off, and then you're just literally going to be reducing this down to where you need it to be. So hopefully that'll kind of show you different varying amount. The one that I did here, I was very gentle with what I applied. This has got a bit of a darker feel to it, and what I may well do is just add a little bit of water to this and kind of go back in here just to kind of get some of this off and try and get back to that dark kind of color a little bit, and not really have to worry about it. That's the best thing about it, is when it's wet you can still work it, you can still get it down in there, and then have another go if you need to. So I'm just going to leave that to dry and reduce it down, and that will hopefully start reducing down while we talk. I'm going to do this a little bit more delicately on here with the other types of pigment that we've got. Push this back. It is rather, it does go everywhere, this pigment, so be careful. Don't put it on your best table. But the good thing about it is you can just wipe it up. And then we're going to just grab some of this and be a bit more delicate with it and put it into some places we kind of want it to be. A little bit in the grass and stuff. And then we're going to blow it off. And then we're going to get another dry brush. Get some of this crap off of here. I'm running out of dry brushes actually. Let's grab one from over here. And I'm just going to start brushing this off. And again, the pigments kind of give you the feel of like dust, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that you can slam this over everywhere. It kind of goes on there, just gives that real dusty sand feel, and it's not a kind of traditional yellow. This pigment is more of a kind of like bony, really like dirt. There's no moisture here in this desert, and I kind of like that. So you know, you can work on it in varying amounts and put a little bit more back in there and kind of just push it in and see what goes where. And once you get it to a level that you're like, okay, I'm happy with that, just give it a quick light blast, because a lot of this should be stuck on there on the model. So when you actually have it on there, just give it a blast with the varnish, matte varnish again, seal it up, and you're good to go. So going back to this one, this is the one that I kind of overdid a little bit. I'm going to quickly show you how to get it back. So we're back to the original darker color now because we've wet everything down. I'm just going to give this a little tiny little bit on here with the original brush and just stick it in some places. And you can kind of see where it's sticking is what is really where you're at on it. But again, I love this because you can just put varying amounts of this product on here, move it around. It's very, very malleable, so you can kind of just go crazy and stick it on there, and it's great. It gives you a good texture. So that's how I kind of brought this back to similar to this, because these, you know, there's little spots where you would put the pigment and then seal it up. So I'm going to quickly seal these now and then show you that's pretty much it finished. So I'm going to give these a quick pigment seal with the matte varnish afterwards. These will dry nicely, and I'll post some pictures up of the finished product at the end of this video. And also I'm going to probably post a link to a discount code for Huge Miniatures. These guys, let me take the bases off. Huge Miniatures, the guys that produce this, they were kind enough to give me a code for viewers of the video to get hold of some of their products at a reduced rate. So check out the discount code at the end of the video. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'm just washing out my airbrush as I'm doing this. Thanks ever so much for watching. As I said, this is a really, really good, cool way to manipulate some textures and get some really good looking bases. So hopefully that's shown everybody what these products can do. I love them. I will definitely be doing them for anything that I've got coming up, for display pieces of Martian or the desert side of things. And yeah, any questions, please feel free to ask it in the video. If you like these types of videos, please feel free to like and subscribe to the website, to the YouTube channel, should I say. And I'll be hopefully doing some more with Huge Miniatures in the future. Thanks for watching. Take care. Cheers. Thanks again to Huge Miniatures for providing the samples for me to do this video today for you guys. Throughout April 2023, Huge Miniatures have given me a code, which is code WARPGATE, to use on their website, and that will get all of my viewers 10% off if you make an order through them. So thanks for that, and check back soon. Cheers.